So look, today, yeah, look, we're just going to walk through some of the issues that are associated and that we should probably be thinking about, given that we have a bit of a very significant cloud, I guess, hanging over the Hunter Valley water supply next year as we go into next financial year. And I guess today's discussion is about stimulating some thought. It's going to be pretty low on high-end detail and numbers. And it's more designed, I guess, to get people thinking. And I'm sure many of you already are thinking about how we're going to manage not having water. There'll be plenty in the audience today that can remember the period from sort of 03 to 07, where we faced a very similar situation. At this stage, the Hunters had very good water up until now, but as it was in the last year of the millennium type drought, we're moving to a situation where that very much may not be the case next year. So again, today's meeting has been supported by the local land services and the Hunter Dairy Development Group and Dairy New South Wales. So what we're hoping to do is just review the current situation with water and water allocations, and we understand that this is a bit of a moving situation, but there is a little bit more clarity, I think, starting to come into where we're heading with water for next year. And again, I might call on a few of the people in the group to have some input as we discuss that. We're going to touch on some different the implications of this with respect to ongoing dairy production and review some of the continuity options and some of the strategies people may look at to help manage the situation. We're going to touch on the current situation and outlook for both the dairy sector and the supply sector fairly briefly. We've got someone, a bit of background noise there. But look, I think, you know, in general, the outlook for the sector is broadly positive, but there's certainly some obvious issues around COVID and that we need to think about how that may impact us, and also some issues, I guess, around whether we see some movement around pricing associated with, you know, the perception that we're moving out of drought. I think we're going to look at some critical decisions that actions can be taken to how we manage the prospect of reduced water allocation, things that you need to be thinking about now. Plans that you can make around your agronomy, your cropping, your irrigation, what we're doing with dry land, setting yourself up for more access to potentially using other feeds if we do run short of fodder on farm. And look, we're going to examine the options to make the most out of water and existing forage inventories for the remaining of this water year. Now, it is hoped that we will run another session as we get closer to June, July, and that's going to be more focused around some of the more technical aspects of optimising water and water choices and water use efficiency. So there will be more detail that comes at a later presentation. I think at this stage, it's more about positioning and broad decision making to put your businesses and yourselves in the best position to manage the next few months and setting yourself up for next year if we don't have the water that we'd like to have. So look, the discussion is designed to be interactive. We'll work out how we go about that, but I guess, you know, if people do want to say something, undo your mute. I think is there a function, Paul, where we can put our hand up to say something, or how are we best to manage that in a big group? Have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, generally if people can unmute Neil and just ask the question, yep. I think, you know, provided we're not having a whole heap of people talking at once, it works. You know, the alternative is, you know, that we all just sort of keep an eye on chat. The other option is at the bottom of the screen, there is a little icon there for chat, and you can enter a question there. You know, the challenge becomes for you know, for Neil to recognise that while we're going. That's all.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
maybe just ask Neil if you're
no, that's fine. Look, I'm more than happy that, and I'll probably get to the end of each slide and just sort of give an opportunity for a question there as well. But if people do want to stop and have a chat as we go, that's fine. We're not here to shut down conversation. We're here to promote it. And I know it's difficult. It's a bit different to being in a paddock where we can do it together in a more informal way, and it's hard, obviously, to read body language and those things as well. But look, interactive session, hopefully, and again, we want to share thoughts and review the options. We're not here to prescribe any particular way to manage the situation. each farm's going to have different strategies, technical opportunities and resources and capabilities. And that's okay, that's normal. You know, there is no one way to do things. There can be better ways to do things, as we know, and more efficient ways to use resources. But at the end of the day, all your farms are there because they've evolved, you know, over time to suit their local area and the people running them. And I guess it's about saying, well, are there some things there that we can fine tune or maybe do a little bit differently to manage as we move forward. Look, we will provide some technical perspective, but it's obviously by the presenter, if requested and appropriate, but there's an obvious disclaimer that the information in this presentation and webinar is general advice and should be not taken as advice. Okay, so look, I think what would be really good is that we actually hear very briefly from everyone in the room and just a little bit about yourselves. And if you can restrict this to sort of a quick 30-second grab and tell us about your operation and if you have any specific things that you'd like to have touched on today, we might be able to get to those as well in this aspect of water resources. So what we'll do, how do I get everyone up? Okay, I need to resize the window. So look, we could start, I guess I can see Brian and Brad and Scott and Tim. Can we get those guys to maybe just introduce themselves very quickly to the group?
Yep, yeah, it's Brian, yep.
Excellent, Brian. So where are you farming, for those that don't know?
Denman.
Denman, yeah, okay. And you've been doing a fair bit of work getting some feed reserves tucked away through the late summer and autumn?
Yeah, well, our cow numbers are down, so that's given us the opportunity to put silage away. So I'm pretty confident getting into winter and spring now.
Excellent, excellent. So that makes a lot of sense and puts you in a pretty good position to manage if we're a bit lower on water as we go forward. Excellent.
Yeah,
Brad?
yeah. Well, that's one thing I would like to know is, if Scott's got any intel on what the water situation will be like.
No, well, we'll come back to that in about 1 or 2 slides' time. So Scott and I had a good conversation about that yesterday.
Yep.
So we'll move on. Brad, thanks, Brian. Brad Smith?
Howdy. Brad Smith. I manage a property in Aberdeen, just outside of Scone. We'll peak at about 900 cows this year. Same thing. We've been baling like crazy. We've done about 2,000 bales last month. We did about 5,000 for the season. Big rounds. We should have enough to get us through, but yeah, it's a scary picture. So just trying to make any changes and put in any strategies that we can to try and see our way through this little period until we get some decent rain.
Terrific, Brad. Thanks for that, mate. Scotty?
Yeah, Scott Wheatley from Aberdeen. We're milking between sort of around 250, maybe a little bit over that, cows. Same as everyone, we put a fair bit of forage away. And I'm also chairman of the Hunter Dairy Development Group, and I'd just like to thank everyone for taking the time to joining the Zoom meeting today. It's a bit of an experimental thing to see how it works, and with the numbers we've got, it looks like it might be a goer.
Excellent, Scott, and thanks for helping putting it together. Tim Walden, you need to unmute.
Yeah, g'day. My name's Tim. Dairy farmer, just leased a farm off of mine at Musselbrook. We milk about 140 cows throughout the year, and yeah, we've been lucky with the rain too. We put away a fair bit of silage for us as well.
Excellent. That's terrific, Tim, to see that you're well set up. Sheena?
Yeah, hi Neil. Most of you may know, but I've sort of changed hats recently and have started with New South Wales DPI as, it's a long title, it's Dairy Farm Business Management Development Officer.
Excellent. That's you've said enough now. Sorry,
yeah.
Just checking.
Oh, there's more. But yeah, my extension role will be filled in due course, and that's Paul's side of the coin.
Terrific, Sheena. Thank you, Marguerite.
Apologies, I did put myself on mute. Marguerite White. So I'm currently managing the Hunter Smarter Farming irrigating for profit project, which has been concentrated the last couple of years in the Gloucester region, but also in project managing the National Smart Irrigation for Profit project. So very much just that background knowledge in irrigation efficiency and just having a look at input costs, those sorts of things related to, you know, looking at overall irrigation management.
Brilliant. So very timely, particularly maybe for our next session. So that's terrific, Marguerite, and thanks for your input. Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew Farr. Me and my wife Christy, we have moved on to a property in Singleton about a bit over 18 months ago. So we're milking around 280 at the moment, and in the middle of calving. So we've been calving about a month. We've been developing the property over the last 18 months. It's been quite run down. So we're there's been a lot of pasture renovation going on and that sort of stuff. So we're still in the middle of that and probably got about another 18 months of that to go to really sort of let it kick in. So, but been able to sow quite a bit of dry land country with this rain, which has been good.
Excellent, Andrew. I think the dry land in years like this gives us some great opportunities. So that's terrific as well. Now, EA01 Hyde, I don't know your name, sorry.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi, everyone. I've recently started working at Local Land Services, and I'm just working with Pete on some articles on the dairy industry for the newsletter, and also we've got the Hunter Livestock Forum scheduled for June, so we will go ahead with that as a virtual forum. So I'm working on that with Simon, and the dairy industry is a big component of that forum. So I'll keep you up to date on that as well.
Fantastic, Amanda. Thanks for joining us today. Kyle.
G'day everyone. Kyle Roper here, local agronomist at Farmers Warehouse in Singleton, and also have my own irrigation property here at Singleton as well, doing lucerne. So yeah, basically that's what I do. So help
Excellent.
out questions as well.
Yeah, look, Kyle, and thanks for your input in the meeting the other day too. Paul, we've heard from already. Dean. Dean.
G'day, David Dean from Local Land Service Pastures.
Oh, David, yep.
G'day.
It's a shadow, mate. You can't see the face well.
Yeah, as most of you know, I'm the new pastures officer with Local Land Services, and I've got a couple of different trials going. One with Kyle up at his property, the Singleton pasture site, and the Precision Pastures project at Chocow Dairy. So.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dave. Now we've got another Dave. David?
Yeah, Dave Shibble here.
Dave Shibble. G'day, Dave.
Yeah, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, for those that don't know me, I'm a former dairy farmer from out of Narromine. These days we operate Denman Rural CRT store in Denman, just on here, just to, just get a bit more information about the water allocation and just to assist some of our customers.
Excellent, Dave. Well, thanks for that. And your experience with farming with not a lot of water is going to help us well out west. So that's terrific. Joanne's iPad. Who have we got there?
Yes, we've got Bailey's at Scott's Flat, Singleton.
Oh, hi, Joanne.
Yeah, we're probably just interested in what allocation we'll be getting next year in the water. I suppose our biggest fear.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we'll have a chat with Scotty about that a bit later. So that's pretty early in the presentation too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we won't be like our master chef and leave it to the last minute if people need to go.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure. iPad. Who is iPad? Yeah. iPad is anonymous at this stage. That's okay. Bennett A5.
Are you there, Neil? Hello.
Yeah.
This is Alistair Bennett.
G'day, Alistair.
I'm the New South Wales State Agribusiness Manager for ANZ. So very keen to see how you're all travelling. 35 years in ag banking, but I also owned a dairy farm of 350 cows on the Canterbury Plains, which I sold in 2014. So know your industry well.
Excellent. We can hear that little bit of New Zealand twang in the background. Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Alice. It's good to have someone from the banking sector here, so that's terrific. Anne? Anne's off at the moment. iPhone? Okay, phone number ending in 129. That's all right. And phone number ending in 415. Have we got there?
That's me, Margaret. That's me, Margaret.
Okay.
I have to use my phone for audio.
No worries. No, got it organised. All right. Well, let's get back into the presentation. Thanks for that, everyone. All right. So we've all heard a little bit about everyone in the room, which is great, and it allows us to ask some questions of other people in the group if we so choose. So look, I guess this is the excerpt from the information sent to me by Scott and to the steering group last week. And basically the story that I drew from this is that at this stage there is no announcement for there to be additional water on general security released for next year. However, there is some options with respect to carryover at the moment, and that there will be a right to use that carryover water as we move forward. Now, Scott, did you want to speak a little bit more to that regarding the discussion we had yesterday, Scott Wheatley?
Yeah, no trouble. Yeah, so for those of you that aren't aware, it looks they made a bit of an announcement back towards the end of February regarding the allocations for next year from the 1st of July. And at that time, it looked like we were probably going to get access to carryover water and probably not much general security allocation whatsoever. But they're going to do a further announcement probably towards the end of April. So I'd encourage everyone to get on either DPI Water website or Water New South Wales website and just register to receive the updates that will be coming through, because that'll be fairly important. And for those of you that aren't aware how carryover water works, you will need to have 25% allocation left in your that you haven't used for this water year, and you can carry that through to next year. But if you don't have that 25% left in your account, you won't be able to carry any through. That's just a bit basic understanding of how it works. And even though the maximum you can carry through is 25%, there is no guarantee that we'll be able to carry through 25%. But at this stage, it's likely that you probably will.
So Scott, does that mean you have to have a minimum of 25% to carry through to get any carryover?
Yeah, you can carry over whatever you've got left up to a maximum of 25% of your allocation. So if you've got 5% left, you can carry 5% through. But so, if you want to maximise your carryover, you will need 25% left in your account.
So if I talk through an example of that, Scott, if we had a starting allocation of 400 megalitres and we carried over 100 megalitres, we would be entitled under carryover to access that 100 megalitres.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But if we had 150 carryover out of that 400, we would still only be entitled to access 100 megalitres.
That's right. The maximum you can carry through is your 25% of your total allocation, which would be the 100 megs.
Excellent. Okay, so I hope that clears things up for people a little bit with respect to where we are next year. I guess what does this sort of mean, and how is the current situation assisted? I guess, you know, if we reflect on the recent rain, it has significantly reduced the drain on existing allocations. So more people may have a little bit more in their piggy bank than they were thinking, which I think is positive. And as a result, we're likely to be carrying over a little bit more than we may have expected when we look back at how things were travelling in January. But, you know, the early summer and people with a lot of crop, it did put a lot of demands on water. So this is going to be very much individual to the farm, and I think the critical thing is that you review all your allocations and understand where you're sitting, and then work out, you know, whether or not there's water that can still be used in the next couple of months that wouldn't be available to carry over otherwise, or alternatively, do you have, you know, water, and is it viable for you to carry that 25% into the next period? There is the potential, I guess, around if you're below that 25% threshold to look to purchase or lease water from other players. And again, that's going to be individual. And I'm not sure, Scott, is there a trading place for that in the Hunter Valley that people can access, or is that mainly word of mouth? Okay. No, we don't have an answer to that. That's okay. I think one of the other important points that I discussed with Scott yesterday, and again, he may want to jump on and have a bit of a comment on this, is that into these situations where we have uncontrolled flow events, one which is in progress now, is that there is the ability to access water that is independent of your allocation. Scott, did you have any comments on the uncontrolled flow event?
Yeah, at the moment there is an uncontrolled flow event taking place in the Hunter. So it's from the Glenbourne Dam all the way through it at present, and it'll likely be continued on for longer past where the Goulburn River meets the Hunter. I think it's got a pretty fair flow in it still. So what that means is you can irrigate without having the water you irrigated at that time tabled against your actual allocation. So the way you do that, you have to get onto iWAS, or you can download the sheet from the Water New South Wales website and put your meter readings in and an order in of just basically what you think you're going to use over that time, and do that, and then you're able to start pumping, and that water won't be tabled against your allocation. And then if you do register to receive updates from Water New South Wales, they'll either send you a text message or an email saying the uncontrolled flow event is going to cease. So at that time, you need to put your final meter readings in, and the water you pump during that period won't be tabled against your allocation. So it's a pretty good system. It got a lot of people out of jail when we had limited water back in the early 2000s. It's something that really worked well.
So look, I think that's terrific, Scott, and one of the outcomes of this meeting, Scott, is that we might chase up that website for registration for people that aren't registered. I think that makes a hell of a lot of sense for us to be able to access that water off allocation when it's there. And I guess for irrigators, I guess one of the temptations is always to sort of wait to the last minute at times to irrigate, which is something to avoid. I think in situations like this where we have a bit of water around, I'd be encouraging you to all have a look at the current 14-day weather forecasts even at the moment, which, you know, look reasonably dry for the next 2 weeks in the Hunter Valley. There may be some opportunities for people to top up some of their moisture profiles in that time off some of that off allocation water, which is again going to potentially spare them more water to carry over and potentially improve their pasture growth rates in the meantime. I think encouragingly the catchment itself is wetter than it has been for a long time. So we're not going to need large amounts of rain to fall in that catchment to continue to flow into the dam as long as they fall in the right place. The outlook is reasonable for that to happen, but like any forecasts, you know, the best weather forecast is probably looking at the rainfall statistics from the day before. But I think, you know, looking at the forecast, there's certainly much more positive from a rainfall outlook than they have been previously.
Just a quick one there, Neil, as well.
Yeah.
Having the dams shut off, which is generally what's happened during an uncontrolled flow event, is with water there's not much water coming in, but at the same time there's none coming out. So that's probably as good as the same amount coming in, 400 or 500 megs a day coming in. Having the dam shut off makes a huge difference.
That's terrific, Scott. It just sort of shores up that underlying level of water that is there in the dam, and it keeps us a little bit closer to the threshold for getting allocations next year. Okay. So what does this mean? Again, how's the current season assisted? Look, I guess we have, and some of our participants have already commented that we've had a fairly favourable late summer and early autumn conditions. And crop management has allowed some farms over both spring and summer and early autumn to accumulate quite a bit of forage inventory, which has been fantastic. I guess we've seen a lot of people really devote their water to high water use efficiency cropping over the summer. And as such, we've put down a lot of feed. It may not necessarily be the best quality feed, and we'll touch on that later, but there's a large amount of forage there to base a variety of rations on some farms as we go into next year. I think one of the real positives that we touched on earlier is that we have had good rain in the cropping regions at this stage. And again, you know, we know that the most important thing for crop production is probably rain through August and September. But underpinning that, you know, we've got some very good moisture profiles going into cropping in very large areas that are likely to go into crop this year throughout the Liverpool Plains and the northwest slopes, as well as the central west, which are all areas that are very important feeder areas for both grain and forage for the Hunter Valley. I think these provide, you know, some good underpinning for us regionally. High stocking rate farms in the valley are already exposed to having to buy a fair bit of feed. And I think, you know, knowing that we may have reasonable priced grain and also forages next year from off-farm sources gives us a little bit more flexibility in, I guess, how we approach a summer this year that may have a reduced water allocation. So I guess thinking about how we can utilise and access those feeds from off-farm and make better use of those is going to be very important as we move forward. Locally, we've had a terrific start, I guess, to the winter pasture season. I think the photo there is some oats at Scott's Flat that's already been cut last week for silage. We're seeing some tremendous growth in some of these pastures with the warm conditions and the rainfall that we've had. So where we've moved early and aggressively, we've had some terrific establishment already of winter feed. And I guess the important thing to focus on here is that we still have reasonably good moisture on a lot of the farms, and there's some good moisture in some of the dryland areas as well, particularly if they haven't grown a lot of summer rubbish. And I think there's still some good opportunities to increase people's area or speed of homegrown feed or speed up their plantings if they haven't got them in already, while we still have a little bit of warmth. I think, again, our milk prices are more favourable than the same time last year. I think we just need to be cautious, I guess, about assuming that the ongoing drought support payments are going to continue. I won't wade too much into those being there or not being there because I don't think there's anything definite being said. But I think, you know, from my perspective and our clients' perspectives, we're looking at those payments with a degree of caution. At this stage, we'd like to see them continued. We think they should be embedded in normal milk price rather than be there as a drought support payment, but we can't guarantee that in the current environment. I guess moving forward, improved margins over supplementary feed costs are likely if input prices continue to soften and milk prices remain favourable. But I guess once again, this really focuses on this ability to look at how we both utilise our homegrown feed, but also the increased flexibility this gives us to using more purchase feed efficiently if we're put in a position where that is the case. If we're very, very good margins and feeding out of those with appropriate views to the things that guarantee our feed conversion efficiency.